It's fine. It's okay.
Never has a bunny rabbit been more disturbing. Well, it's actually a hare rather than a bunny rabbit, but if I start talking about hair, I'll get all sorts of sarcastic comments. Anyway, we are talking Starve Acre, and this one stars Mordred Clark and Matt Smith, otherwise known as Galadriel from the Lord of the Rings TV series, and Daemon Targaryen from House of the Dragon. Now, this is a British folk horror movie that is actually based on a novel. I'm not familiar with the novel, but it is an adaptation of one. So, what is the story? This is a somewhat bizarre pagan folk horror. I mean, if you're a fan of things like The Wicker Man and that kind of thing, it's not really like a cult movie exactly, but certainly a old English kind of ritual style movie, I guess you want to say. So it focuses on this family, the father played by Matt Smith, the mother played by Mordred Clark, and they have a young son. And the young son early on starts to exhibit strange behaviour, almost violent behaviour, as it stabs a pony's eye out. Yeah, so, but then tragedy befalls this family, and they spiral into depression. They are tried to be helped by the wife's sister and also this neighbour that kind of crops up here and there, but both the husband and wife are dealing with grief in different ways. Now, the husband, played by Matt Smith, has had a little bit of a checkered past with his family and his own father, but there seems to be something possibly supernatural going on, an old prophecy, a legend or dark primordial powers or something like that, where the Matt Smith character finds like a skeletal remains of a hare. He's a kind of like a teacher, scientist, and he takes it into his house and it seems to regenerate and actually come back to life. Among the same time, we learn a little bit more about the history of this area that relates to this kind of tree that used to be in the area, and its potential influence on those around them. That's kind of all I'll say. So let's discuss what I think works in this movie. So this is a movie that is not going to appeal to everyone. It is a very slow film, but I think the story, even though it is slow paced, it just drip feeds you enough intrigue, and you know, it's such a atmospheric movie in some ways. I think it is intriguing despite the slow pace. Now, one of the movie's big selling points for me, I would say, is you don't quite know what's going on, but you know enough to kind of broadly understand at least the beliefs of the people that are involved, is the best way I'll describe it, and what they think is kind of going on, and what our characters who are a little bit far, further removed, like the sister, what they think is going on. So it kind of it sounds a little foreign, a little surreal, and as the film progresses, we are introduced to this hare that is seemingly come back from the dead, and it's all quite unnatural looking, is the best way I would describe it, and it's just super intriguing about what's actually kind of going on. So I mean, I've seen this movie described as surreal and somewhat of an impressionist movie in some ways, but I wouldn't say it's like an art house film. There is elements of surrealism, but I think it just about makes sense in context of if you are taking notice of what the myths and legend that this movie is kind of introducing. So there's enough there, I think, there's this through line where you can kind of accept, if you can accept there's some weird stuff going on, the movie just about makes sense, or enough sense that where you can kind of understand where the plot is going. I think it's very effectively acted. Our two leads here, and to be fair, all the cast, I think, do a great job of selling these characters who you really feel the sense of isolation. I think this is taking place in like northern England, possibly in the late 60s or the early 70s, around that sort of time. Feels, you know, very rural, very isolated, but there is a sort of a sense of the small community that is there. So it's kind of, but the acting, I think, is very indicative of that period of time and in the area that it's meant to be taking place in. And I thought the performances were solid, understated. It's not really kind of, this movie isn't like a shouty movie. There's not jump scares. There's not kind of like big VFX moments, but it just has this kind of strange feeling of paranoia and kind of the layers kind of coming off as the film progresses. Yeah, I think the cast do a great job. Great musical score here, I think, underpinning this weird kind of feeling that you'll get through the movie, and this strange, disturbing kind of vibe that it kind of puts out. The VFX, now, the VFX are interesting because it's not flashy VFX, but how can I put this? There are creature effects here that I think are done very well to the point where I think people won't realise they're creature effects. Is the best way I'll describe it. But they're done to that make something that would normally be somewhat natural looking to make it feel somewhat unnatural, and it's just like, wow, that is really effective. You've taken something which could be quite mundane to many people and made it act bizarrely and potentially supernaturally, and it kind of is quite kind of affecting. So that was all pretty good. As the film goes on, it gets a little bit more into the kind of the bizarre territory, but I think it's established enough in a kind of a down-to-earth characters and filmed in a way that it's not like too out there in regards to kind of art house filming techniques, where you still buy into the characters and you can still you get a grasp of the story. So what doesn't work in this movie? To me, I mean, it's not going to be for everyone. This is going to be somewhat of a taste thing. The movie is slow. It is slow. And I think that if you don't have patience, or if you want a more visceral experience, then you may not find it in this movie. Even films like The Wicker Man, which again is probably the easiest comparison, it's probably the best known kind of folk horror movie, that had more kind of like big moments than this movie does. So it's not really a fair comparison. It's a very subtle movie in kind of what's kind of going on. So there is that. There's one or two things here that I don't know made complete sense, and I think could have been a little bit better explained. I'll give you one, which is kind of an idea here. So we have the son, this young son, and we are led to believe his behaviour is significantly changed. And then, as the film, this is relatively early on, and then something will happen, and we don't really kind of reference that much to anymore. But there are other characters who are in a similar position that don't have that kind of that behavioural change, and I didn't really understand why the son did and other characters didn't. So there are some things here where the movie is very vague, and I think is maybe a little too vague. Like I said, I didn't feel like I fully grasped everything the movie was saying. I got enough where I kind of understood the kind of the backstory and what this movie is trying to say and how things are influencing characters, but there are elements, smaller details where I kind of felt the movie could have done a better job filling in some of those kind of blanks, to be honest with you. And there's just a few other elements, like there's a kind of a seance scene, and again it kind of feels like I don't quite know what the relevance is. So yeah, there's just a couple of things here that I don't know were fully kind of cognizant, at least to me, in regards to how they kind of relate to the plot as a whole. Overall, though, I enjoyed this movie. I thought it was a very well done film. You know, it's a slow movie, but it's still an intriguing and gripping film. I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10. Would you see it based on what I've told you, or have you seen it? Please let me know what your thoughts are, and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.